Today on Thin Ice, a familiar face who's delivered the news across America for a couple of decades. You might recognize him from forecasting blizzards and hurricanes, and a good friend of mine too, Rick Reichmuth. Great to see you.
Good to see you. It's been too long.
I know, it has been. Where are you right now?
I am in Prescott, Arizona, which is my hometown. I'm at my sister's house in her backyard.
I love it. Beautiful. It looks really good. So you grew up in Arizona. I mean, what's the weather in Arizona growing up? It was like hot all the time or what?
No, it's amazing how everyone thinks that Arizona is all sand and heat all the time. But Prescott is a mile-high city. It's like Denver, 5,200 feet elevation. And it rarely hits 100 in the summer, and in the winter it's cold, plenty of snow. So it's a very different climate. And you can see in my backdrop here, tons of flowers, trees that you wouldn't expect. It's not a cactus sand place by any means. So it's a beautiful town.
Hidden gem. Yeah. I love that. Absolutely gorgeous. Did you grow up like some weather forecasters did, like following the weather, loving it as a kid?
Yeah, I think most meteorologists had some childhood passion about it. I would, it's very strange. So in this climate, we get plenty of rain, we get plenty of snow, but to get an entire day that was cloudy almost never happened. You'd get a storm, and I remember as a kid being like, I just want to not see the sky today. Like, just let this storm be a real storm that like takes over. And that almost never happened. Like at some point in the day, the sky is going to break through a little bit. And I am one of those that since I was little, I wanted to be in the weather, talk about the weather. I used to talk to my family about the weather. I'd write my grandma letters about the weather, and loved it.
And so was it pretty much a straight path to television, or did you consider doing other things like National Weather Service or being a pilot forecaster, aviation forecaster, or were you like TV all the way?
I have a very unconventional path to it. I grew up in Prescott, really wonderful parents who were workers, hadn't been to college, never once told me to go to college. My dad wanted me to either go into the military, be a barber like my dad. My dad was a barber his whole life. Post office was like the dream job if you could get on as the postman, like Mr. Santandrea down the street. That was like the dream. So the fact that I even went to college was kind of a fluke. I ended up getting a degree in Spanish literature. It took me 8.5 years to get that degree in Spanish literature. And at the time I had gotten a job as a teller at a bank, and I ended up becoming rising through the banking world and became a branch manager of a Bank of America branch and wore a suit to work every day. And I did that until I was 30. And this could take like an hour long, which I'm not going to do, but had like this epiphany and didn't want to do it. And I quit one day after hearing a voice and changed careers. Since I was little, I wanted to be a weatherman, but I didn't think it was a real thing. It was a possibility. I didn't know anybody who was in TV or did weather or even like pursued their dreams. So I just never thought about it. But I was 30. I was like, I'm going to try to figure this out. And I did. And it worked.
Fascinating. I never knew that about you. I love that. Before we expound on this, I have to take one tiny time out to say Spanish literature. I'm wondering, did that connect you to the COVID Tulum excursion where you were broadcasting to Mexico during COVID?
Well, it did. The reason in my 8.5 year to get my 4-year bachelor's degree, I had spent one of those years volunteering at an orphanage in Mexico. And so I learned Spanish in that time. And then I was like, I just need to get a degree in something, and I speak Spanish. Let me get a degree in Spanish, thinking it would be easy. And it wasn't. But during that time, it like gave me my love of Mexico. And yes, we've got a place in Mexico. And during pandemic, I pulled all my equipment down to Mexico and set up my studio, and that nobody knew that I was there, even the host of my show, because we were all working from home studios. I was doing mine from Mexico.
That was great. That was just like an incredible story. When I found that out, I'm like, that is probably the best COVID story, work from home, that has ever been told.
Yeah, it was
all
great.
right. So you get the TV bug. You think, okay, let me see how I'm going to do this. Where was your first job on TV?
CNN. It was very strange. So because I spoke Spanish, I got a job. I had turned in my resume to CNN, and I'm already trying to whittle this story down for you, just because this can get carried away. But CNN had a Spanish network, has a Spanish network, CNN en Español, and I got a call one day asking if I could come in and be a temp because they needed a temp. And so I show up, and basically it was to be kind of an executive assistant for the two executives at CNN Espanol. I didn't know how to type. I didn't know how to be executive assistant. I had never answered somebody's phone. I didn't know anything. So I got a Mavis Beacon typing CD that I put into the computer and taught myself how to type, and started answering these people's phone. And it was very strange. Nobody was talking to me, and I did this for a couple of weeks. Finally, they pulled me into their office and they said, like, who are you, 30-year-old man? Why are you answering our phones? And I was like, had spent 10 years in banking and I hated it. And I heard a voice that said, go. And I left, and I want to be a weatherman. And they somehow were like, we love this story and we would love to help you. They said the woman who had this job committed suicide like the Friday before you showed up, and we needed a temp. And you have a energy that feels mature and stable, even though you're being very unstable at this point in your life. But they said, we like you, and we think we could use to have somebody like you, and we'd love to invest in you if you'll like spend this time and be with us. And so I did, and developed great relationships with them. And they let me run off at the time to Georgia Tech during the day and start taking meteorology courses. They hooked me up with the weather people, and I would go in every, in the weekends, in the mornings, in the evenings, and practice. They would critique my tape, and I finally got to where I had a tape ready, and I was sending it out to, all the small markets across the country, as you do. And somebody at CNN had seen it, and I get a call one day that says, hey, Rick, we need somebody on Headline News tomorrow. Can you do it? And I was like, yes. And I went out and I bought clothes that night, and I showed up the next morning. And suddenly it was like, what the hell have I done? Obviously, I can't do this. This is insane. And but I showed up, and my first day was on Headline News. I had never had an IFB in. I had never had anybody really talking in my ear because all my stuff had been fake in practice. And it was I am convinced that when you are on TV, especially in news, nobody inside the building is actually listening to you. They're just getting ready the next segment. They need to make sure there's sound happening, and they're working on the next thing. And so I did it for that day, and then I got a call at the end of the day saying, can you do tomorrow again? And I was so happy I was going to have real stuff on my demo reel to send out. And I was like, I have to recut this so that I can have not fake weather presentations. And then I went home for Christmas that weekend, and that week, and I got a call while I was gone that said, hey, can you work CNN next week? And we also have 2 days on CNN International. And I kept on doing that for about 3.5 years, where I was filling in between those three stations, and I kept my secretarial job. And so mostly I would do Headline News, like with Robin Meade in the morning show. And that my last hit was at 8:45. And by 9 o'clock, I would be bringing my boss coffee into whatever meeting that he was in. And then I would work as a secretary all day, and then maybe do another shift in the evening for international or something. So that was it. Very unconventional route to TV.
Story. I love this story. So untraditional, but really taking advantage of the opportunities in front of you.
Yeah.
That is like the story. This could be a whole book. Yeah, very, very interesting. I love it. And so was Fox then your next job?
So from there, I got a job at some point after 3.5 years of doing that. I thought I was maybe going to get a job at CNN. In fact, the Headline News job came open, and I thought I was going to get it, and Bob Van Dillen got my job, who we ended up working with later on. Yeah, and Bob and I are great friends, and we've known each other forever. But he got the job that I thought that I was going to get. And then the head of talent at CNN was like, listen, we'll probably never hire you. You started here as this freelancer guy, and you really have to go out and cut your chops somewhere else before we would ever consider you. So I left, and I got a job at a weather company called Weather Services International, WSI, that basically makes all of the weather graphics systems, like collects all the data, makes the hardware and the software for weather presentation. And Fox used to outsource all of their weather to this company. We'd make all the graphics for Fox. We'd FTP them back to Fox in New York, but they also outsourced about 50% of their on-air hits to WSI. So I got this job as the person who would do the like outsourced weather hits. So I was basically like in a green screen closet in an office park 30 miles north of Boston. Fox would come on and be like, we go to our Fox Weather Center with Rick, but the audience had no idea I wasn't a Fox employee, and I was, off in some green screen closet someplace. And I did that for 2 years. It was a really inefficient way to do weather. It was also the 24 and 25 hurricane seasons, which had Katrina and was massive, and weather in news became a really important thing. But because I had that job, then Fox hired me to come and build a weather department at Fox because they didn't know how to do it. And now I had the experience of WSI, I had all the contacts at WSI, and learned how to come in and engineer all of those systems into Fox and how to build a weather department. So then I came to Fox, built out this weather department, started on air there, and did that for 19 years.
As you look back, especially at your long tenure at Fox, do you have some particular storms that you're like, this is kind of my career defining storm, or the biggest storm I covered, or one that it was impactful for you?
Yeah, I think career defining was probably Katrina. And that was, I still wasn't at Fox yet. I was on, at WSI at the time. That was certainly career defining. But I think the ones that became kind of changed me a bit more was when I was covering tornadoes, especially around fatalities. And, going back to where I told you where I come from, of this world where I was supposed to be a, barber or a postman, to suddenly be at, the first one I was at was a tornado that had cut through eastern North Carolina, and there were a couple of fatalities. It was the first time I'd ever been around a storm where there'd been a couple of fatalities, like in the space, and it felt very important to tell the story and impactful. And then the next one that I was at was the Tuscaloosa tornado, which was a massive tornado that cut right through the university area, killed over 20 people in the Tuscaloosa area. And there's one specific story. We had picked up a location where we were broadcasting from all day, and it was very much in the, searching for survivors. And there was a group of people in a family that had lost a toddler who was under a year old. And so throughout the day, they would, stop everybody if they thought they heard something, and everybody would have to be quiet as they were, thinking they maybe heard something. This went on all day long, and then I had a hit on like whatever the Brett Baer show, that 6 p.m. news show is, and literally like a minute before I went on, they found the toddler had passed, like right where I had been standing all day, within 20 feet, and it was the first time. But I immediately went on a follow up to the story and started to cry, and it was such a powerful thing to have been in that space. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you understand, we get into weather because we love weather. We love the power of weather. And there's something that I've always loved, that as humans, especially humans in the United States, we built an infrastructure that can withstand so much weather, and weather in other countries, in India that gets a monsoon season and can kill 10,000 people, or, floods that can go through and kill massive amounts of people. In the United States, we feel very invincible because we have an infrastructure that we've been able to build and protect us so much. But there's something about the weather that still feels powerful, that it's a thing that is more powerful than us, that can determine, the course of families' lives in tragedy or in beauty. But it feels very powerful, and I still love that. It feels strange to say I love that, but it's the thing that is moving to me about the weather, is it's still a force that's greater than us.
And there are so many of those stories that we hear in different corners of the country. And if there isn't somebody there to tell the story, a meteorologist or reporter or whatever, sometimes those stories, those lessons, those feelings go unheard. And I think it's so important to tell some of those stories because as good as meteorology gets, as good as forecasting gets, as good as the infrastructure gets, we're always going to have weather that we can't control. And that means outcomes that we can't control as well. So those stories will continue for us. The other thing that you've done that's really been incredible is been an innovator. You are an innovator because you designed something that was, of course, related to the job, but it's something that you created and you sort of started a side business. Let's talk about the umbrella.
All right. Well, yeah, I was standing in front of a rack of umbrellas one time in the Upper West Side in Manhattan.
Oh well, let me stop right there because anytime there's rain in New York City, there's an umbrella graveyard because of those fans and the umbrellas that can't last, right?
That's exactly it. And I call it the umbrella graveyard as well. I was at the Gracious Home store, that Gracious Home that used to be there. And I'm sure you know it because your old studio was right by there as well. And so I was in front of a rack of umbrellas, like, what's the good one? Like, just tell me what the good umbrella is. I don't even care at this point. I'll pay for it. I'm sick of this, the single-use umbrellas. And I was like, why don't we know what the good umbrella is? Like, we know whatever, every other category, what the good one is. We don't know that in umbrellas. And I was like, I bet I could tell people what the good umbrella is just because of my job. So I set out, I talked about it for many years. Like, I'm going to make an umbrella one day. And then after probably 4 or 5 years, it was like, shut up, Rick. Like, either stop saying it or do it, one or the other. But you're making a fool of yourself by saying it and not doing it. So a friend of mine is an industrial designer. We started pulling apart umbrellas, trying to figure out how do you make them, what makes them bad, what makes them good, how could they be improved, and set off to make just a really quality umbrella. And so that took a number of years to get to that point where I had an umbrella that was a better umbrella than other umbrellas. And launched it almost 8 years ago. In fact, in a couple of weeks, it'll be 8 years. Weatherman is the name of it. I was like, I'm going to call it Weatherman because I'm a weatherman and I think I can make this make sense. And so, yeah, we've been in business for almost 8 years selling umbrellas. And now that is what I do full time after I left the TV job. And yeah.
It's a great umbrella.
It's a third career.
Yeah, it's a great umbrella, though. I can definitely testify to that. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned creating a business, like being your own boss and starting something that you believed in, but now you've got to make other people believe in it?
Yeah, listen, this is such a transitioning from banking to TV was a really big transition, and it all worked because I was naive and had no idea how hard it would be. I think so many things in life, if you know how complicated it is in its totality, you would never, be brave enough to go and do that, or you'd never think you could do it. But you just start taking the steps and putting one foot in front of the other, and you start to learn more, and suddenly you have some bit of information and that you can start to build something with. So that's how TV really worked for me. And so I think I thought, same thing with the umbrella. I will say this, I really was set out to try to make a good umbrella. I didn't think I was having a business or building a business. And in fact, by the time we got to the point where we launched the umbrella, I now had some employees and a bit of a team and some, investors, and which meant I had to learn all of those things about, lawyers and investors and cap tables and finances and accountant and all of these things. And so I got to the point where we launched, and I thought, well, man, what am I going to do now? I think I did this. I've launched this thing that I wanted to do. And I had no idea that I would have a business. Very stupidly, most people want to have a business, so they go out and find a product that they want to bring to market. And I was just trying to make a product, never trying to have a business. And I struggled with that for a while because there's elements of it that I was like, I don't want to have a business. That's not what I did this for. I wanted to make an umbrella, not have a business. And it took me, it probably took me 6 years before I actually learned how to run a business and have a business, and the importance of a business. And, it really is like having a child or having to take care of a living, breathing thing that can do well or not do well based off of the effort you're putting into it and how much you're taking care of it and how much you're paying attention to it. And it took a long time for me to get there. And I think it's only been in the last probably 2 years that I feel like I get it, what it is, and I can do this, and I get how to take care of a business. So it's hard beyond belief. By far, the hardest thing I've ever done. And when I've heard other business owners say this will be the hardest thing you ever do, it has helped me to know that, because there's times when I'm sure you've had this happen when you're in the middle of something that's hard that you think I can't do this, or this is more than a person can take, and you think you can't handle it, and then you hear somebody else say like, yeah, it's hard, and that's normal, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. This is hard. This is one of the hardest things you can do, and okay, other people have done it. I can do this as well.
Along that journey, there are highs and lows. There are wins and fails in that whole journey of it, which makes it so interesting. Do a couple of things stick out to you? Or like, wow, this happened and it was really a big win, or we lost a truckload of umbrellas. I mean, have there been wins and losses like that you can identify?
For sure. Listen, I would say I had an employee who was good. He was a marketing guy. And I remember, I will say this, since I started the business, I've had very few times where I feel peace. Like I think it's a thing that I'm on at this point in my life, is to understand how to have a business and still feel peace. So it's taking it past the business and trying to move it into your life, where you're like, how can you create a steady state of comfort and peace in your life outside of the turmoil that can be happening around you. And I think that's just, a thing that in life is one of our things that we strive for, forever. I'm sure you're still in that as well, and I am. But I had one of these days where I was done, it was like a Friday, and I was like, oh, I feel like everything's just kind of working well. This feels really good. And I got a call like 10 minutes later from this employee saying he got another job and was leaving. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's like finally working and I'm going to lose this employee. And it felt, it was the first employee that left. And so it felt like a bit of a betrayal. I was a little bit hurt. I was really worried. And you end up making it work and figuring it out. And so it's a weird thing, because your business is all about the people that you have working in it with you. You're building this podcast, and it's about your team that you have working with you. And that's, this isn't just an Amy Freeze thing. It's an Amy Freeze and the people who are all, setting up your mic and got this all going, and this is going to sound harsh, maybe in a way that I don't intend it to. You build this team and it's wonderful, but you also have to know if any one of them leaves, you can be okay. And that's really, important in life, is you're doing this, and if your producer goes away, or if your studio burned down tomorrow, it doesn't mean that On Thin Ice disappears. Amy goes out and keeps working to build this and do this. And so, that's what life is something gets hard, and all right, that's it. That is what happens. Life gets hard. And so now I have a new thing to learn and a new challenge to go out and figure out how to overcome it. And that's what life is. It's what yours and my TV career was. Like, how do you maneuver this and work through the challenges of it and still come out and keep on going forward and working hard and finding ways to make it work.
Yeah, it really is. When you look back on the TV, to switch gears back to TV just for a second, I mean, people look at television, they think of it as a very glamorous type job, which there are the glamour parts to it, but there's a lot of rigorous work that goes. There's weird hours and working days that other people wouldn't naturally work and stuff. But there's also these privileges that come along, these opportunities that other people wouldn't normally get. When you think back to your career, meeting celebrities, going places, doing things, are there some of those moments that you think back of and, fondly put at the top of the list?
I mean, listen, and working at a place like Fox and on a national level, you get access to a lot of really amazing things. And, the first of all of them were probably the most exciting, This is a weird one. I feel like I'm bringing all kinds of sad stories along the way, but my first ever concept of death was when Elvis died. So I'm a bit older than you, so you probably don't remember this, but I remember Elvis dying and sitting on a swing in our backyard and being like, "Wait, he's not coming back, and are you sure? And maybe he like this doesn't make sense." And then Fox sent me to cover the 35th anniversary of his death to Graceland. So I went to Graceland and I was there in front of it, and it just was such like, how did I? This was my first understanding of death, and now I'm here doing this on TV and somebody sent me and I'm being sent someplace from work, like flying someplace. It just felt so like, and then taken hundreds and hundreds of flights for this. But it's one of the things that hit me. The first time, the Daytona 500, the first time I covered it was scary. I had never, knew nothing about NASCAR or racing or any of that. And so I think what TV teaches you to do is, people think you're an expert on all kinds of things, but really you're kind of a quick study on a lot of things, like a storm hits a town that you don't know that town, and suddenly like elevation and population and prior, tragedies that have happened in the town, and some political turmoil that had gone on, and you learn all this stuff really quick and dissect it into the most important pieces and tell it. And that challenge for me is incredibly fun to be able to do that. And, so to go to Daytona 500 and suddenly like learn drivers and drafting and, the spotters and all of the things around a topic really fast is so cool to be able to go through a career and quickly grab bits and pieces around stuff, never becoming a major expert in so much of it, but being able to be exposed to so many interesting pieces, and celebrities, covering the Macy's parade for like 15 years and all the celebrities that come along that. That's, I remember making a fool of myself because I was a little bit older when I got into the whole career. Sometimes I would not understand my age, and I said to like Sarah McLachlan, interviewed Sarah McLachlan. I was like, "Oh my God, like I grew up with you," and I'm probably older than her, so it just was like, she was like, "All right, thanks, old man, that you're acting like that." But Gladys Knight was the nicest person I ever met. Just could not have been a sweeter woman. So.
Some really great memories, though, when you think back. It is a job that is special in so many ways. A lot of times people see you on TV, you start to become recognizable and a celebrity to them. But it's the job that really presents those special opportunities, whether it is with a privilege, someone famous, or the intimate stories that we share about viewers. I look back and so many of those experiences, they really change you, they change your life. What was it like with your colleagues? How did your colleagues impact you? Because I always feel like weather is kind of, we are the side chick. We are the side person.
Totally.
We are the person who's,
You're the extra.
We're the extra. And so how did that work with you, with your coworkers over the years? How did you look at those relationships?
I think that's a hard thing sometimes to, when you go into this, I never was going in this to be known or famous or any of those kinds of things. And that's part of it probably that made me the most uncomfortable. Like it still is, it's nice if somebody recognizes me, but it also, I feel very awkward about it. It's like, why do you know me? Or I don't know. It's a hard thing to put words into for me. But I think also when you're the extra, you are in a position of, it's hard to accept that sometimes. Like you get into this, you're also ambitious and you want to achieve something. And so it's like you're not always invited to the party because there's a party of a show that's happening, but you're not always invited to it. And that's a hard thing to maneuver. If you're, like the main anchor is invited to the entire party, but in the weather, you're not always invited. And that was a hard thing to understand. Hey, what can I be a part of? And also when you work at a place like Fox, and you were there in Fox Weather, which is a weather-driven place. But I was at Fox, it was increasingly becoming more and more over the years a political place. And I didn't go into that to be in the political place. I went into because I wanted to do the weather, and worked on a show that had, I was on the same show, the Fox and Friends Weekend, for 19 years. Never tried to get off of it because I think it was the best show in the building. But I was there through probably, I counted one time, I think it was like 40 different hosts on the show. And I think I've been through like 20 different senior producers and, but I was just like always there, keep showing up and I don't know. It's such a weird thing. TV people are strange. And most of the people that I worked with, almost all the people I worked with, were really great. And most of them, we are friends. We're friends working there, and we're still friends afterwards. And I love them. And I was fortunate. My show, I think, had a abnormal amount of normal, good people on the show. But that's not always the case in TV. There's, egos and people who are striving and mostly full of a bunch of insecure people who are searching for validation, and it brings out the crazy in them when they get on TV all the time. I would see people who were specialists in a field who would come in and a topic would happen in the news cycle, and so we would use them all the time, and once they start getting on TV, they want more. And they're like, I want more of this, and people get really addicted to it and love it. And I'd be like, you're like a preeminent heart surgeon. Like, why do you need to be trying to get TV time? Like, it's so weird to me.
It is. I can relate to a lot of the things that you're talking about, especially when weather happens, you're the star, you must be at the top, and you're going to talk for as long as we want you to. But if there's no weather happening, are you even really here?
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, yes, I have something to say. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a very interesting role to have in the weather world. All right, I want to talk a little just about the future and get your input on, do you have a opinion, sort of an outlook on what technology will bring to meteorology, to television? I mean, we have a lot of our colleagues who are going out and doing independent weather.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. Listen, I think that TV is becoming... I don't want to bash this place that I just left 2 months ago because, it was amazing for me. But I think TV is becoming increasingly less interesting and less relevant in some ways. And I think the TV places that figure out how to keep that relevant will be the ones that will work. But the ability, and you're doing this now, going out on your own and telling the stories. And we're seeing it in, all kinds of journalists as well who have left news and are going and starting their Substacks, and I see some of them, I follow them, and how amazing to be like, a story breaks, boom, I'm on air and I'm talking about it right now, and I didn't have to wait till my show came on while somebody else was talking about it for 4 hours before my show came up, or I can only talk about this because this is all the producer will let me talk about, or whatever. Like, to be able to have that immediate access and build your own thing, I think is really amazing. And the voices who are good at it and become trusted at it, I think can have huge success with it. I think about it like it won't be me because I have a business that still, now requires a ton of time. And so I won't be that person, but I see some of them and follow some of them who are out there talking about the storms, but, forecasting them, giving opinions on it, talking about, the relevancy of it, fighting about it. And I think it's a pretty fascinating time. And, it's going to bring all these little subgroups and, somebody with 2,000 followers or 20,000 followers can make a living and can build a world and stuff out of that. And I don't know, it's a fascinating time. It's a fascinating time for an ambitious person in this space, I think it's
Absolutely.
great.
I every time I talk to younger people who are interested in meteorology or interested in being on TV doing weather or so forth, I am really saying, encouraging them, yes, definitely learn how to enterprise, to produce, to be on camera and stuff, but look for the specialty. Become an aviation meteorologist or
Yeah.
a some sort of, agriculture meteorologist. Have a specialty because that will sort of separate you from just jumping on and talking about weather anywhere or the microclimates. I mean, I see a lot of people deciding to cover a particular geography and then they become the specialist in that. So when weather happens there, they're the most important. So they might have their regular viewers of that weather, but when the storm system comes through as tornadoes or whatever, the whole country is interested in that. So
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity for people to do their own thing and have a lot of relevancy when the weather really matters there.
Yeah. I think you're right. I also think, in addition to that, though, just be authentic about it. Like, I'm sure you've had this happen. In fact, I talked with one of our ex-colleagues this week, and it's not been a massive hurricane season yet. I know there's Melissa out there could change that pretty quickly certainly for a bunch of people, but they've spent a lot of time sitting out on a coast during some coastal storms. And I'm like, I could not care less about beach erosion. I just like, it's not, I get it that there's some houses, like 3 houses that might be damaged or something, but I can't get myself excited about it. And so when you're on TV on a story and you've got to sell it, and you've got a producer and a boss who's like, hey, we got to get the eyeballs going. You have to talk about beach erosion for days. I personally am like, I can't do it. Like, I just don't care that much. I'm sure there's people that really care about beach erosion. So I'm not trying to like negate beach erosion. Personally, it's like a hard one for me to sell too much. My point is, when you're in TV, you're forced to sell something that you might not actually think is that interesting. And in this new world, you can go and be authentic about the stuff that you actually care about. You don't have to go and care about all of these things because there's nothing else to talk about, but you got to keep eyeballs trying to watch you for another 30 minutes.
Right.
Like,
You can do the thing that matters, and the thing that you see is important. You don't have to work all the time. You can be working for the moment. That's one of the things that I really love
Yeah.
about some of these independent meteorologists that love the storm chasing, all that kind of stuff. Well, what's up next for you? You're going to be doing the umbrella company, Weatherman.
Yep.
Do you have some other sort of bucket list items that you want to knock off?
Well, so we are in the business. We're launching. In fact, it's all happening right now. In the next 3 weeks, we're launching ponchos. If you go to our site, weatherman.com, we look at our ponchos are amazing. Really breathable, comfortable. You're not it's not a hot box underneath. It's like a really comfortable experience in a poncho. We have a backpack that's waterproof that's got a space for our smallest umbrella, so its own little pocket. So you can put your wet umbrella in a spot that you don't have to get all your other stuff wet. We have sun protection hats. We have pet rain gear, all this other product that we're launching. So my goal in the next few years is to really build Weatherman into we're not trying to help you climb Mount Everest. We're not going to be that high technical specific product, but we're trying to let you go and stand in front of your kid's soccer match and be comfortable and protected. So for regular people to be outside and enjoy their life still, that's what we're trying to build out in the brand. So that's kind of where we're taking the brand.
As a baseball mom, I can really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. Let you to be outside as much as you can, because I love being outside. Be outside as much as you possibly can and be protected. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at the business. I don't know if you know this, that I have moved to Italy.
I knew that you had got a spot and that you were going to be doing the renovations. Because I remember you telling me, I think it was Eastern Italy.
It's Puglia.
Right?
It's the heel of the boot.
Heel of the boot. Okay.
It's the heel of the boot. Yeah. So in the process of moving there, actually, which is why I'm at my sister's house, because I am homeless right now in the U.S. So that's happening. So I'm going to run the business from there. This is not a me fleeing the U.S. thing, which a couple of people have thought, is that what this is? It's not a, whatever, Rosie O'Donnell fleeing the country at
No,
all.
you were planning this. I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, this was just I started this, found this place and loved it. And I've got a bunch of olive trees and almond trees and want to go have this, I don't know, I'm 56. I didn't want to wait until I was 65 to just be done and keep doing this thing that paid well, but I wasn't really passionate about it anymore. And so I want to go have another adventure. So I could imagine having a totally other career again of renovating old properties or something like that. So I don't know. I'm sure there's some others. I like to work, so I will keep on doing stuff. But in the short term, I want to keep on building Weatherman to get it to a point, a place that I think it can get to. That's my challenge.
I love it. Well, I wish you all the best in the Italy experience, and anything I can do to help you build Weatherman, count me in, because it is a great umbrella. And
Thank you.
Also, all the admiration in the world, Rick, for the career that you've had and the journey that you've been on. It's a big inspiration to a lot of people.
Likewise. Thank you for asking me to come on to your podcast. I'm proud of you and what you're doing, and it's great to see you continue. I think you're also one of the innovators kind of in this space. And so congratulations on doing that. And I'm a big fan. I'll keep supporting you as well.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thank you.